Hello, I'd like to talk to you about a subject which is challenging lots of people around the world. Millions and millions of people are suffering from depression and then also panic attacks or anxiety attacks, as they're often referred to. My name is Cowley, and you're not going to see glitz and glamour here and big stories. I'm just going to tell you what happened to me and what I did to change that and how I actually became a victor over depression. Really, I'll take you back. I was born in 1961, which is about 48 years ago, and I really grew up. Childhood was much like most fortunate children, probably, because I lived near the sea. My parents weren't wealthy, but we never had any lack. We had enough to eat, decent homes, decent cars to drive, went to good schools, and I played a lot of rugby, cricket, bit of swimming, things like that, and went to university, studied to become an architect in 1980. I graduated. My first degree I received in 1982, and again graduated in 1985. But really my problems began in 1985 during my main exams. I started basically with some pains in my neck and shoulders and lower back, and at that time I wasn't eating properly because I was studying too hard. I'm sure you know all of those things, the hamburgers, the hot dogs, the things we normally do that we shouldn't be doing. And eventually I went to the doctor. It was during my main and final exams. Went to the doctor, and of course the normal situation, which I think we're all familiar with, take a little pill, you'll feel better soon. And often not knowing what ingredients are inside of these little pills we get given. And over the next 2-3 years, really what happened, I visited 22 different specialists. I had heart tests done, lumbar punctures, you name it. I had a glucose tolerance test that lasted 5.5 hours, where you get injected every half an hour, they draw blood every half an hour, things like that. And my health really wasn't much fun. I don't know if you're in that situation or if you know anybody who's having difficulties like that. But what really happened is the problem got worse. The problem got worse, and the medication I was taking was no solution. I'll give you an idea. I'd sit in the winter time, and I then stayed in a city called Pietermaritzburg near Durban in South Africa, and I would sit outside even 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd have burning sensations all over my body. Be in the middle of winter, I'd take my top out, just have trainers or jogging shorts on, and it might have been, I don't know, sometimes -12, -16 degrees in Queenstown where I stayed as well, and I'd still be feeling heat on my body, and I'd chuck water over myself, and it was just no fun. Life wasn't worth living anymore, and really, I eventually ended up writing a book on the subject because everybody was asking me, what happened, how did it work out eventually, because I'm not having any problems anymore today, and it's all been sorted out, obviously, with a lot of prayer as well, and the prayers of lots of my family and friends. And I think what eventually happened, the drugs were actually just making the situation worse. I ended up with 14 different diagnoses from 21 or 22 different specialists. I had a psychiatrist who ended up crying in my presence when I was the one needing the help, because they just didn't know what was happening. I just want to read you some of the drugs here. In the books, it's just amazing how many people suffer from depression. They reckon in the United Kingdom about 7.35 million people have depression at any one particular point during the year. Obviously, when it gets colder and it's dry, or when it gets colder and it's wet outside, and it's raining all the time, and the sun goes down at 3:15 in the afternoon, and it probably only gets up at 9, and if you're lucky, the sun is above the clouds, and you might just see a few rays coming through the clouds. But they reckon in America, in the USA, anything up to 60-70 million people at any particular time during the year suffering from depression. Now, we're not talking about something where you are just not feeling well. You get that thing, oh, I'm just tired, I'm feeling a bit down, I'm feeling low. That's not what depression is. Depression is when it keeps on. It lasts 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, 4 years. I actually suffered for 14 years. So if you think it gets rough, then you probably still have a lot of things to learn, and a lot of bad things going to be on your way till it gets better. What I was taking really were things given to me by people who weren't understanding what was happening, and they were just trained that way. Doctors get taught to read from a book, knowledge obviously, which has been gained probably over centuries, but it's not a one solution fits all. No magic bullet in this situation, yet that's what people want us to believe. There are obviously lots of things that influenced me, bad things because of the military that was happening in my life, people that were spying on my officers, people that were bullying me, lots of things happen which is really not good. But I just want to read you some of the things I was taking, and you may relate to some of these drugs: Lexotan, Inderal, Tenormin, Valium, Diazepam, Prozac, Fluoxetine, Ativan, Zocor, Voltaren. These are just some of the things that get mentioned here. And what happened? It got so bad that I'd play with my daughter in the swimming pool, and when I push her out of the water, I can see her screaming, but I can't hear her. Yet I can hear people getting on and off buses about 800 meters from where I stayed. I can hear people talking, but I can't physically see them. Okay, it gets that bad. So, if you're suffering, cheer up. I know exactly what you're going through, but please don't expect people around you to understand, because they don't know what's happening to you. They don't understand, and I don't want to knock GPs and the medical profession, but they don't understand either. It's like, if you want to learn how to play tennis, would you rather have a good coach or somebody like Pat Cash, John McEnroe, or what's his name, the new tennis player, the Swedish guys teaching you how to play tennis properly? Mats Wilander, people like that know something about tennis, Andre Agassi, or any kind of sport. You would actually rather learn from a person like that, because they've experienced it and they've learned how to win. They win at their sport, and they learn how to get over something bad. And this is exactly the same sense. You're not going to find the information I'm going to give you in both the book and just if you communicate with me via the internet, or you listen to some of my DVDs, or send me emails and things. You're not going to find this in medicine. They're not going to tell you these kind of things, and the people around you often won't understand, because often the people around you are frustrated. They think you're just being lazy. They just think that you can just get up in the morning and decide to get over it, and it's not that simple. It's not that simple. I want to give you one nice quote here in the book from a guy called Escher. He says, I don't need to use drugs because my dreams are frightening enough. And you might probably experience this as well. But what did I do eventually? Eventually I had to decide this is enough. Enough is enough. I gave up on the drugs, which really were just killing me. They're synthetic things. They aren't the things that God designed for you to put in your body. And I gave up on the drugs against all medical advice. And I suggest you consult your doctor rather than listening to me on that score, because you might actually die from that. So I just gave up. I stopped the drugs. I started to work through this for myself and develop some skills. And that's really what I want to share with you. I want to share it in the form of a book, which I've written. I've written all this stuff down while I was depressed. And I changed a lot. The music I listen to, the food I eat, the people I associate with. And that's really what I want to share with you. Thanks a lot, and do check out on the website and send me some emails. Thanks, bye. Welcome back. I really want to run through the book with you, and on the subject of depression, we've done the first little part, but I want to do 5 more parts, so you end up with a compact summary in 6 different parts. So what I want to do in part 2 now is basically just give you some information on the contents from the book, and then run through the types of depression that you can have, symptoms of mania and depression, causes of depression, and then a little bit of where I'm from, and just give you some more background information. So the contents of the book really starts with some useful information about depression, things you need to know about depression. Then I'll tell you where I'm from and what happened to me, then how bad it gets. I know you might not want to hear about it at the moment, but it's good to know. Then at least you get some basis that would make you calm because you understand what's happening to you. I think often people are destroyed by the uncertainty because they don't know what's really going on. Then I'll tell you how it eventually worked out, what I did, and finally what you can do in summary to improve your situation. Okay, so the various types of depression, and I'm not talking about just little feelings of sadness. I'm talking about A, major depression, B, dysthymia, and the third, which is bipolar. Okay, so to start off with major depression is characterized by inability to work, sleep. You just about can't do anything. You can't talk properly, you can't eat properly, you behave contrary to what people are used to from you, and it can be very disabling. Eventually you don't want to go out of the house anymore, you're scared, you lose your confidence. So really it can be a lifetime of suffering for a patient once they suffer from depression, major depression in any case. Dysthymia is obviously a less severe type of depression, and it can be long-term, involving some chronic symptoms that are very disabling. So it might just last for a shorter period, it might be for the next year or two, something like that. And people find that it might reoccur, and later on in life they can struggle from dysthymia again. The third type of depression is really bipolar disorder, which really means that the person gets very high at times and gets very low at other times. And this is very devastating because, as the term describes it, bipolar means that the person is being pulled between the two poles, okay, either very down or very high, and then you get dumped again though, okay. So these are really some of the things that you might be experiencing. You know, you get up on a Monday morning, you feel depressed. On Wednesday you feel more excited again, and by Friday morning you can't get out of the bed because you're that low again though, okay. Obviously the most severe forms of depression can go into what they call mania, and it's really where you've got no energy, everything seems to be sad and hopeless. There's just an emptiness, you're pessimistic about everything and anything that happens, you feel worthless, there's no more pleasure in your life, you can't sleep properly, and we're not just talking about mood swings and things, you're very irritable, headaches, severe joint pains, muscular aches, and I'm talking like you feel after you've run several marathons, it's that kind of intense, with lactic acid and things on your muscles, so it really gets very bad. Okay, now the causes of depression, obviously there's a school of thought that says that it's hereditary, something wrong with your nervous system and it runs in families, things like that. Now I do admit that it probably makes it more difficult for you if you are from a family, because a lot of it's also learned behavior. You see your mother reacting in that way, or your father, and that's probably the way that you get something that you want. You get some attention, things like that. Now, I'm not saying you're just depressed to seek attention, but it can be one of the factors. Okay, there are really three main identifiable triggers. One is like social issues. You're losing your job, you can't get along with other people, you get divorced, you're isolated, even though you live in a city, you've got no friends, things like that can lead to it. Then another one can be psychological, chronic anxiety, rejection as a child, all of those kind of things. And the third trigger for depression, physical symptoms. Let's say you get injured in an accident, or you are chronically ill all the time. It's something that really pulls you down and makes you very ill eventually. I'm not going to run through all of this. You can buy the book and read all of these things. Really, the other thing we've got to take notice of is depression in elderly people and depression in children. For too long, the medical world and the teaching profession have really just said that the child is naughty. Now, I think a lot of children are naughty, don't get me wrong, and they should be sorted out appropriately by their parents. I don't think it's the right or the place of the state to get involved in the raising of the children, but that's just my opinion. Okay, so only over the past 15 years has depression in children really been given any recognition. Previously, they've just been referred to as lazy or difficult children, and we really have to pay real attention to that, because Ritalin, another drug, is not the answer. It's not the answer just to make somebody drowsy and get them halfway to sleep and let them go through life in that manner. It's just not admitting what the problem is. Okay, a baby is born with a need to be loved, and it never outgrows that need to be loved. So even us big babies, we need some attention. Okay. If initially the depression is just something, let's say not just, something emotional, in the long term it can also become something physical. So you start off being depressed and it actually affects your state of health, and you can become very physically ill from suffering from depression. Okay, so let's not ignore that. Just in closing this part 2, I want to say where I'm from. I was actually born in Knysna in the Western Cape in South Africa. I grew up in a place called Humansdorp, which is near to Jeffreys Bay, for the surfers, where the famous waves are at Surfers Point, and I often spent 2-3 days a week in Jeffreys Bay at the beach, and that's really part of the place where I grew up, and I actually do, as a result, still love to swim and to be in the ocean. I've got an elder brother, Robert, who's about 5 years older than I am, a sister, Trudy, who lives in Australia, who's 5 years younger than I am. My father since passed away in 2005, and I can probably blame him in part for what happened to me as well, because he was on the left wing. He was a supporter of a guy called General Jan Smuts, and to live as an English-speaking South African in those times amongst and with the Afrikaners, who we obviously got sorted out quite well as time went by. My mom is still alive. She lives in Humansdorp still, where I spent most of my childhood. I got married in 1982. My wife Barbara is a maths teacher. I have 2 daughters. Sophia is 23 and Joanne is 21. A lot of the things that happened with me and when I was struggling was just after university. Obviously, I have an A-type personality. I'm an architect, and what I did, by the age of 26, I was a director of a company that had 16 offices. I had 8 other partners, and I think only 2 of them got paid more than I did at the time, because I was so upwardly mobile, so focused in getting ahead. And I always tell my children that I don't expect anything from them that I haven't achieved or done myself. And to give you an idea, at the age of 25, I was a director of probably about the 3rd largest architectural company in the country. I was driving the fancy BMW. I had the big house with a pool. All of the normal things that people reckon you need to be successful. But at that time, I had to earn about 60,000 Rand a month just to have nothing. You know, basically before I could save 1 cent, I actually had to spend 60,000 a month, and it was not fun any longer. Since then, we've moved abroad. Since 2002, we've been living in London, and my kids are doing well at university. We feel much safer here, although we still love South Africa, and obviously that's a part of the turmoil that you grow up in as well. Hi, welcome back to part 3 on our discussion about depression. I'm just reading from the back of cover of the book here, and that may give you some idea of what it feels like for someone to suffer from depression. And I'm going to read here. Imagine arranging a huge party for 5,000 guests and no one showing up. That's the destruction of depression. Imagine experiencing dying but staying alive. That's the destructive power of a panic attack. Imagine living but having no feelings. That's the devastation of having both depression and panic attacks at the same time. Unfortunately, for the hundreds of millions of sufferers worldwide, nobody who has not experienced it themselves can imagine, let alone start to understand it. And that is our challenge. Okay, I'm just going to give you an idea of what happened to me and how bad it eventually got. Well, at about 12, 13 years of age, I can remember the first time that I experienced severe anxiety, where I had to be treated by a local GP. This has happened about 2-3 other occasions during my time at high school. And then for the next 12 years, I never ever really experienced any trouble again with anxiety, depression, or really any health challenges at all. I can remember of one girl in 1973, Caroline Berger, a girl in my class, died from a severe, very rare disease. And it obviously affected me. It had more of an effect on me than other children in the class. And then again, a friend of mine died. He actually drowned at a holiday resort in 1974, a guy called Brookman. And I can still remember, even as a child, the trauma and the effect it had on me as a person. And, that's nearly 35 years ago, and I can still remember what happened. Okay. Then again, during my studies at university in 1985, I hardly slept at all. I was in my final exams as an architect, and I stayed awake. I checked for about 52 hours. I just kept on working, and obviously I wasn't looking after my health as I should at that time, and I then allowed depression to get hold of me. I can remember once while I was driving in my car that I experienced these symptoms, and I nearly killed my wife and kids in the car, in an accident as the car was swerving and twirling around, eventually facing into the oncoming traffic. So it gets really bad. Okay. There are a few other things that you can look out for, other symptoms that develop: negative thinking. You think that something bad is going to happen, and it becomes more and more intense as you go along. And then you become irritable. You don't want to spend much time with other people. You don't want to argue with them. You just want to get away from people, and you go into isolation. You close up your room. You don't go to social events anymore because you're scared of fainting or feeling sick. Your pulse starts racing. You sweat. Often I would check my pulse just to see that I'm still alive, and you get these crazy thoughts that you can die at any time while you're walking in the street. Acute thirst. Your mouth would get dry. You'd have no energy. You'd constantly be tired. You go to bed tired. You wake up tired. So if these are any of the things you realize: intense pain and redness of the eyes, burning, tingling sensations all over the body, and then dizziness, feelings of vertigo that you're going to fall over, and then again repetitive negative thoughts and negative thinking. Those are all of the kind of obvious symptoms of depression, and obviously then associated with panic attacks as well. I'm just going to read you from the book. I can remember walking across this big open square in Pietermaritzburg in Natal, and there I experienced this, probably about 400 meters across the square, and there must have been 500-700 people on the square. Yet suddenly I felt that I was getting sick, not feeling well, but the most scary thing is that nobody really paid attention. I eventually went down to sit down on a little wall in like a garden area, and I struggled with, I feel I'm going to die from the disease or whatever was wrong with me. I took my shirt off, put some water over me, and nobody paid attention. Eventually I raced back to my car that was parked in the building's basement. I put the air conditioner as cold as I can get on full, the fan on full volume, and I just sat there, and I eventually just cried about this because it's so frustrating. It's like you feel you can't do anything about it. You feel that this is inevitable. This is how my life's going to turn out. Okay. Other things that happened to me, obviously, is well known in South Africa, the military situation where we had conscription. Everybody had to go to war, and I had to go, but I wasn't going to kill anybody. If anybody wanted, if John Foster wanted somebody killed, he can go and kill them himself. He's not going to get me to do his filthy work for him. And that was obviously something that was held against me. I was interrogated and shot at and waterboarded and all of these things you see on television today that everybody's crying about at Guantanamo Bay and all of these things. We had this in South Africa years ago, so this is nothing new in Africa. It might be new for the world, and it might be disheartening to them and frightening because it's never been part of their setup. But believe me, in Africa, it's been there for centuries. Okay, so obviously at that time, my wife and kids were not living with me because I had to be in the army, and eventually I resisted it, and they basically have like a trial. They want to sentence you to jail sentence and all this, spend time in jail for 2 years and things like that. And they want you to admit that you're a terrorist, or at that time the big one was the Rooi Gevaar, which was a Russian sympathizer and things like that, which I obviously wasn't. But if you could say, or they could get you to say something like that, it was easy to put you in jail. And but eventually, what I struck a deal with them that I'd be an architect in the government service, and that I wouldn't have to do any conscript service, because I was a conscientious objector at that time. Okay, so these weren't things that were helping my mental state of health at all, and I eventually went. I'm just looking at the picture of 3-4 hospitals where I went. I went to Bloemfontein Hospital where they did all the heart tests on me, and I went to a hospital in Grahamstown where they did all the CAT scans and the brain things, and the lumbar punches I did in Greenacres in Port Elizabeth. So really the nice thing about all of that eventually was that it ruled out in my mind that there was nothing physically wrong with me, in the sense that I wouldn't die from a heart attack. I don't have cancer. There's no glucose problems. I'm not diabetic. So eventually it's a long list of things that made sense to me once they'd been ruled out. Okay. Apart from the physical pain, there's obviously the dominant psychological trauma. And sometimes it's just like dying but being alive. So I don't know how else to explain that to you. It's like nothing makes any sense to you. There's no time in your life. You're just going nowhere. So some of the times I just sit in my house and I look at my wife and kids and cry, and they wouldn't know why, I wouldn't know why. There's no apparent reason for that, and it's just a surreal setup. There's no time, there's no context, no content to your life, but you have to somehow fight your way out of this. You've got to find a way for yourself. Nobody's going to bring it to you. It's not going to come from the doctor, unfortunately. It's not going to be given to you by your wife and your children. Your friends most likely would want to avoid you because you're just not fun being around people who are depressed. Okay, there's a Carl Jung saying here, who looks inside awakes, he who looks outside dreams. Okay, so you really have to find your own answers to your challenge. And that's what depression is. Depression is a psychological challenge. Now, I'm just looking here, at times my weight would swing and I would gain and lose up to 24 kilograms in 12 to 18 months. Okay, so it's something severe that really happens to you. I just want to close off this part by saying that obviously my faith was challenged, and in these situations when it's an intense, emotional, painful thing like that, your faith can help you through. It can be something to rely on. But it's also very challenging when, like I did, I would start challenging and questioning God. Why would God allow this to happen to me? I'm doing my best. Why is He not helping? So I'd have to find someone to blame. And I think at that time your mind is so disjointed. It's like a rough sea tumbling around, and it's just no time to take any life-changing decisions really, or to make sense out of life in any case. In section 5, I basically just want to tell you how it all worked out for me eventually. What's life like today? How did things change after I decided to take these drastic actions to change my life? So I have to admit that my life's been unrecognizably changed by the effects of depression. You will never again be the same person that you were before once you have recovered from the depression. My personality's been changed. I have to accept that. Some changes have been good, others are not so good. I've learned to compromise. You've got to take some pressure off you. You have to compromise, where before I would just rush in and do something. I'm probably a bit more reserved. And one of the best things I've got from it is a greater compassion for people. I've got a greater understanding of the challenges that other people have. I can sympathize with people, not making them weak, but I can understand their frustrations and challenges a lot better. Therefore, I'll give you my assurance that if you buy the book, or if you send me emails, or if you go on the web page, I will assist you as much as I can, because that's my passion, to help other people who are struggling with depression or anxiety, panic attacks, something like that. And whatever I'm able to contribute to your life, I'm willing to do that. Today I'm again experiencing a lot more of the pleasures of life. I travel the world a lot. My family go with me. We've got businesses all around the world, basically, where we travel to. We own a couple of shopping centers, some office buildings. We're really blessed, so many, a couple of properties in South Africa, some in the UK, others in Swaziland. I'm busy developing things like that. And I'm just busy starting up a new chain of hotels, probably about 6 or 8 new hotels that I want to build in different places around the world. So my wife and kids, like I said, my wife's a maths teacher, my kids are at university, and today I can enjoy life again. Like I said, with my wife and my kids, we travel around the world. In 2005, in June, I had a bit of a challenge again. My father passed away, and it was an emotional challenge to me. It's so overwhelming. All your emotions come back. Then you start doubting yourself. Will I be able to be strong? Will I be able to survive this? And I'm just proud that I could come through that without taking any tranquilizers. It's just, you become proud of yourself for being much stronger, and that you can resist any negativity. And I'm just glad that God's given me the power and the ability to be stronger, and to be a more committed person, and having more love and caring and understanding for other people. There's the one thing I found from my father, that he was really a person who had total contentment. He was at peace with himself, and he was at ease with his own mind. So a couple of years ago, I also experienced some physical challenges, and I needed to have an operation. And again, you allow a bit of the negativity in. You always think something bad can happen, the worst can happen. But in time, you actually learn that in actual fact, most of these events and the things you're dreading don't happen. They don't come to pass. Okay. So every single time we become stronger, we have a victory, it makes us prouder, and it makes us more capable of facing any challenges in the future again. I want to encourage you to find someone that you trust that will help you through as well. Not someone on who you can offload, but someone who can help you, just to support you as you need it. We're a very close family today, and even more so than before. Obviously because of the challenges that I had health-wise, and because we moved to another country about 6 years ago. Okay. So I pray that you surround yourself with good friends. Find good people that would support you, people that would stand by you. And they can really be anywhere in the world. Today with technology, you can chat to just about anybody. But I'm saying real friendships. I'm not talking about Facebook friends. I'm talking about real life friends, people who will understand, people who will have compassion for you, but also people that are disciplined, that will give you the kick up the jack when you need it. Because sometimes we need to be told when we're out of line, and we need to be told when we are doing things which are actually bad even for our own sake. Okay. So I want you to carry this through, and in my whole life, keep the structure, because the structure is so important. You need some discipline, you need some framework within which to function, because you're going to be around, 1 year, 10 years, 20, you might be around for the next 50, 80, 100 years. And there's got to be some order and structure in your life to give you sanity. So I pray that you can find this, and that you can find at least the cause of your depression, and then take the relevant action. In the final part, in part 6, I just want to explain to you what you can do if you want this system or this approach to work for you too. Obviously, you've got to allow for some guidance and some counseling or mentoring in your program if you've decided you want to change, you want to become healthy again. And you've got to learn to speak an emotional language, because our feelings are emotions and they're often a learned behavior. So it's like a language that you've got to relearn. Or it might be a new language for you that you've got to learn for the first time. First of all, you've got to decide if you want to take medication. You've got to make up your mind. If you want them to assist you with medication, then stick with them and stick to the program that they've given you. But you still have to apply from your side. You've got to do the work and wean yourself off the medication. So once you've made up your mind, stick to the plan. Don't chop and change all the time. But you should evaluate as you go along. I just couldn't go on for 12, 14 years as I have in the same way. I had to make a change because it wasn't helping. Don't be stupid. If after 3, 4, 5, 6 months or a year, nothing's changed, it would be idiotic to keep doing the same thing and expect it to have a different outcome. I soon realized that medications are not a fix. It's not a fix for mental problems. It's not a fix for depression. And it definitely does not help with panic attacks. So go for a full medical check. Get the checkup and make sure you don't have a heart problem, that you're not suffering from some form of disease or illness, some cancer or something which is that serious physically. Okay, I'm not downgrading your mental problems, but first find out that there's nothing physically wrong, because you don't want to die from a heart attack if you can have it picked up properly now. Then you've got to admit that you've got a challenge or a problem. You've got to be honest with yourself. Then you must decide, do you really desire to be happy? Do you really desire to have a change in your life? It's a decision. You've got to decide to be that way. People aren't just happy by themselves. It's a decision they make. Then at least you've got to be capable of distinguishing between the times that you are sad and the times when you're feeling happy. You know, if it's just all the same for you, it means that you're so run down already that you can't distinguish between your emotions, and that needs some serious attention. Then I've given you some practical steps already. You've got to implement this action. You've got to take these steps. You've got to make changes. You've got to do these exercises. You've got to change your diet. You've got to get rid of the things that actually make you feel that way. And you've got to modify the way you think of something. You know, I think the most terrible thing is that psychiatry and psychology and all of these things, they try to get people to change the way they think of bad events. And this to me is just utter rubbish. How can you teach a girl that's been raped to make that unpleasant event to something acceptable in her mind? You should say that it's wrong, it's disgusting, it's disgraceful, it's not her fault, but the other person is at fault. And if you can get that into your thinking, you'll have a definite improvement in any case. Then also check at the source where you take advice from. Don't take advice from broke, horrible, negative people. Take good advice from people that have your best interests at heart, though. So feelings have to be sorted out. And then also do the things that prolong the feeling of goodness and limit the things that make you feel bad. So what I'm saying, to balance the depression, go for a walk, read good books, listen to good music, go on trips, play games, find a hobby, do all the nice things that will balance your life out a bit better than it has before. Okay. We've got to also fight the feelings of depression. Don't go into a constant fight, but be aware of it when you're feeling bad, and decide and talk to yourself in your mind as well, not to react and feel that way. Chemical imbalances, this is the one thing I obviously always get though. People want to know what they can do if the doctor tells them that the cause of their depression is a chemical imbalance in their brain. Now it's true to say that they have a chemical imbalance in their brain, but many times it's the easiest way of explaining to people in layman's terms. What I find, you get depression and then your body changes and you get a chemical imbalance in your brain. But medicine wants to say, because you have the chemical imbalance in your brain, that makes you depressed. And it's wrong. I say the depression creates an imbalance in the fluids in your brain, which is a huge, huge step and change in thinking, which they just haven't been either willing to accept or haven't been able to do yet though. You've got to increase your confidence levels. Keep doing something. Every little victory you get needs to build you up. Okay. I just want to read you something that some people have written here to me, and let me just find it quickly. Just some people have written back to me, and you might find it useful as well. Here's a lady, Angie Collins from Sweden, wrote back to me. She says, ever since I can remember, I had some form of depression or negative feelings. I've tried many times, but I could not shake them off completely. I have heard of it being possible to do something about it yourself, but I've never been able to have such a clear and practical source that I could consult. With your help, I have finally got it now. The solution is inside of me, and I can find my answer. I needed someone else to point it out to me because I was in such a mental state of chaos. You gave me a new lease on life, and today I am so very happy. It is a feeling I have seldom before experienced. Okay, so you can really get over this by doing something practically about it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You'll have to get out there and do it for yourself. And in closing, I just want to end off with a quote from Bernard Meltzer. He says, when you forgive, you in no way change the past, but you sure can change your future. So I want to encourage you, go out there, buy this book, get yourself the DVD, listen to the CD, and go on our website, get more information, write me some emails, and I'll give you as much information back as I can. God bless, and have a pleasant life.